Oh, walking in this Dharma stream, I believe in you, I believe in me. Waking up from this dream, I believe in you, I believe in me. Give me a way to breathe. Give me a way to love. Give me a way to live. Oh. No more feeding the illusions of a solid separate me. Bodhisattva's guiding my way, and I see things differently. Oh, give me a way to breathe. Give me a way to love. Give me a way to live. Oh. Sitting even in the midst of the uneven, and resting in the don't know mind. Reflecting truth, the time is short now. No more blocking out the wisdom. It's been right here all the time. Knowing the way to breathe. Knowing the way to love. Knowing the way to live. Awaken mind. Awaken mind. Awaken mind. Oh. Awaken mind. Oh.
Need a couple of tissue. But I think I want to just go right into the Dharma talk today. I say this, and you've heard it before, but I like to say it over and over because sometimes we have to hear something 100 times before it really sinks in and waters a particular seed in us that we need to go to the next level. Yeah. And so intellectually, we can think, oh, I understand it, I know it, I've heard it, I can tell you about it. But we don't have it to the degree that we need it, that will actually take us to the level of realization that we are in our hearts really seeking. So the good we would do, we don't do, and what we don't want to do, that we do. And then others judge us on the basis of that, and one knows that one is not truly known because, oh, if they could really see my heart. It's just that I'm so obscured by these obscurations that cannot come forth. And so there's only one way for it to be able to come forward, and that is the compassion of the wisdom mind. Because the wisdom mind is not attached to the friendship or the friendliness of the individuals and their way of thinking and seeing and knowing and understanding and walking in the world, but it is only in tune to the bondage and loosening the chains of that bondage so that they can be free. That's what real compassion is. So real compassion will tell you the truth. And sometimes that can be hard to take, hard to bear because we're so touchy-feely with ourselves. We're so, even when we know that, even when we know our shortcomings, we're still really touchy-feely with ourselves. We don't want to, I mean, like, you can share, but there's a certain way you got to share it with me, because of our conceit, And so it takes a true friend who will tell a friend the truth. So this discourse, I started reading it a couple of weeks ago, but it was so tough, I sort of like backed off. Everybody, you have to be able to take it. But let's say that I'm an adult and I work all day, so I need nutrition suitable for my conduct. I need nutrition suitable for what I have to do in the course of the day. And let's say that another is a baby, they can't walk, can't even crawl yet, or milk is enough, it's suitable for them. But strong meat would kill them. So that means that I can't give the one who's working all day and who needs a fortification, they're not gonna survive on milk. And likewise, the baby is not gonna survive on strong meat. You understand? But when they're all together and you have to fix the meal and serve it, sometimes it has to be the strong meat, sometimes it has to be the milk, sometimes something in between those two. And yet, there is always something that the mature one can get, some nutriment and nourishment from the milk. So we are encouraged to keep a beginner's mind. And at the same time, our care for others allows those who need the strong meat the opportunity to meet with that as well. The problem is that when we start to hear that, we start putting up our defense. Well, I don't think it takes all that. We start putting up our defense. Well, I'm not doing that. Or or we start out. For instance, from the way I've been taught, the way I understand things, I don't think that's right. That's not the purpose of the meal. The meal is for those who need more nutrition and fortification. If that's not you, you can just let that pass. You don't have to. You don't have to take a helping. You know, but one would rejoice in those who do take it and get what they need. This is a very basic aspect of us cherishing the Dharma as it comes forward, knowing that different Dharmas or aspects of Dharma is for different uh, classes of people. It's for different categories of beings, depending upon their great vow, depending upon the effort they put forward to that, depending upon their state of realization, depending upon their aspiration. You know. So with that, I'm gonna pick up. Remember, this was a story of a gentleman who came, who's one of Buddha Master's students, and he actually had been very successful in life, and then he met the Buddha and started cultivating himself. I mean, really cultivating himself. And he had sort of like a worldly wisdom, um, and that's what we like call a scattered wisdom. So there is definitely some wisdom there, you know, but it's not based upon or in accordance with awakened or enlightened principles. And that's where the confusion comes in. Uh, and so as he was taking in the Dharma, he really got enthused with it, and he wanted people to have the Dharma, and he began to grow and develop according to that. But there were other seeds still in him that needed to be uprooted, plucked up, or allowed to completely die. And if not, they would get watered by the scattered wisdom, and they would sprout and grow. And so the good and the not good would be growing up together. And that's how it is in all of us, you know. But this was his particular story. And so after listening and cultivating himself, he said to one of Buddha Master's disciples, "Sister, I have a certain thought. I constantly feel that I am no good. With great difficulty, I encountered my Buddha Master in this lifetime. And if I were to go around everywhere swindling people all the time by telling them I will empower them, even though people call me a Rinpoche because he reached the stage or there was the acknowledgement that he was a Rinpoche. At the end of the day, I would still be doomed if I don't liberate myself from samsara." And at this time, he was truly frightened, so much so that it seemed he was stupefied. And in the end, he said that he would not engage in such swindling. And this was the swindle. He originally wanted to make money to build temples. That's a great aspiration, right? He thought people would seek him because he was a known, well-known, a kind of famous Rinpoche. He thought that people would seek empowerment from him, and he charged people 3,000 Taiwan dollars per person for the empowerment. He thought I can easily get more than 10,000 people to come, which will enable me to make a great deal of money, and I can begin building these temples. Then he heard me say that such money was not clean and that he would have to bear a karmic debt. He heard me say that truly carrying out the four immeasurable minds for the sake of living beings and the Buddha Dharma that one practices is what's important. And using that method to make money, though, is not important. After he understood this principle, he became more and more frightened. This is one doing introspection now, right? With this feeling of fright came a feeling of unhappiness. He was willing to give everything up. He only wanted to end the cycle of birth and death. He understood that after he liberated himself from samsara, he would naturally have powers. And after he understood this principle, he became more and more afraid. I told him to observe, to contemplate his dreams. His dreams were very clear during that period of time. He would only think of Buddha Dharma matters when dreaming during sleep. I told him to practice according to his dream states. And so I'm going to try to tie this in a little bit, if I can, with some things that are happening. And over the past couple of weeks, you know, many of you have been calling me or writing me, if you're not local, about dreams that you're having, and the quality and the nature of these dreams. And then I shared last week about a particular dream that I had, and then coming out of the dream, and the Yidam speaking, telling me what to do with that, how to go back into the dream, and how to counter what was arising in the dream with my waking state aspiration of what two things? Precept and vow, right? So y'all need to go back and listen to last week. So he said, go back into that dream, bringing the aspiration of your precept and the vow, and that's how you conquer what's in that dream. And so, this is all strange occurrence, like when you wake up and then there's this dream and you have this question, you get an instruction, you go back to sleep, and you go back to sleep and you're right back in the dream, right where you left, right where you left off, right? And I bring to bear in that dream my aspiration for my precept and my vow. Okay, so now I wake up the next morning and I'm waking up feeling really good, strong in my faith, because I was able to go into a dream and bring up my aspiration in that dream for according to my precept and my vow. Mine is not yours, yours is not mine, but we each take up what we want to take up, and we can lay down what we want to lay down, but it takes some work. It takes right methods. It takes, effort. It takes insight. And so there it was. So I wake up, I'm feeling really happy, like something has happened within me that has given me some insight on how to work with things that come up in my own heart, in my own mind. And then I get, I call them signals. I get the signal, but, I get this inner instruction. Now, that was taking something that is pragmatic and what we would call real in this life, in putting it into a dream, right? He said, that's only half of the practice of the work. The other half is coming back to this that I call the waking state and seeing it as a dream. That's the other half of the practice. So we can't spend our time fiddling around with our dreams. It was only a teaching measure, a mechanism to show us what to do in our waking state. So if we get all carried away with dreams, we're going to die deluded. And so it was seeing what was possible to take into the dream state, and then say, now see this that I consider the real life, the real world, see it as a dream. And then you can bring to bear the power of your precept and vow to neutralize, to shift, to overpower the kilesas right here in this real world. So what happens is every time we learn something, we're so enamored with fiddling around with woo-woo stuff, and we start thinking that's the life. But this is the life. It's just that we see it, we have a faultiness in our perception of seeing it. He said, see it as illusory, see it as a dream. But because we see it so concretely and we fasten down on it, we lose or don't take up the power or the capacity to shift. Oh, if you could get this, I tell you. So it says actually practicing according to your dream states is very easy. You first get rid of your worldly attachment to self, and then totally eliminate your attachment to self in the ultimate sense. This can be divided into two parts. You first let go of attachment to self. You must throw off your attachment to self and do things totally for living beings. Now that's a self-examination. It's not a test you take and pass your papers up front. It's not like that. It's one getting to know one's own mind. Not the mind that you want to project or present in front of people. Because you'll come into places where people have clarity and they can see and they know what's what. So you can fool some of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time. But sometimes we ourselves are fooled. That's why the Dharma is available. The Dharma is available for us so that we can clarify things for ourselves, that we won't be fooled, that we don't fool ourselves. It's not so much about us tricking others or fooling others. Every person is the owner of their own karma, you know? But it's that we don't want to be fooled. I don't want to fool myself. And so the Dharma is there to help us like a mirror that we can really look and we can say, see that? Got that little mark right there. Oh, that's better. But if I hadn't looked in the mirror, I wouldn't know that that was there. I mean, it has to get really bad. Like, I have to have a speck, not on my cheek. I have to have a speck in my eye to know I have a problem. It's got to hurt before I can realize, it's got to block something before I can maybe realize that it's there. If I look in the mirror, though, I can see the speck. Just like that. When you get my age, you start growing occasional hair here and there on the chin. And sometimes, I don't look really closely, and all of a sudden I look and there's this gray hair coming out. Oh, my goodness. I'm now my grandmother. I have a pair of tweezers. That's so sad. Oh, aging is something. But because I know that, I'm now prepared. My great granddaughter, she's 5. She doesn't need a pair of tweezers. She doesn't have wiry hair growing here and there. So you must first let go of attachment to yourself. Throw off your attachment to self and do things totally for living beings. So that's a question I can ask myself. What shall I do today for living beings? What's within my capacity, what's within my strength, what's within my interest, what's within my power. Now that's a way to start. Later, it doesn't matter whether it's in your interest or not. If it comes by you and there's something that you can do, it's like one day Jesus was ministering to a group of people, and uh, he said to one of his disciples, "Who touched me? Somebody just touched me." And they said, Jesus, a whole bunch of people are touching you, because they were like all crowded around. It's a whole bunch of people talking. He said, no, this one, I felt virtue flow out of me. So it was a special kind of touch, a special kind of connection that was imbued with certain properties that would attract and draw out the virtue. And and then, of course, we know that story. It was the woman with the issue of blood, and for all of these years, and she was sick, and the virtue, because of her faith, the virtue flowed out, and she was healed. And so that's the story. So this notion of doing things totally for living beings, in the beginning, it's not totally. In the beginning, it may even be grudgingly, and hope we pass through that stage quickly, because grudgingly, I mean, like, actually, although you're not doing it for benefit, giving does benefit you, you know. So except when you do it grudgingly, then it has no benefit. Or with conditions, then it has no benefit for you. And it's considered an unclean offering. Says, however, do not become attached to doing things for living beings. What do I mean by this? You first let go of self or I. You think of the interests of living beings in all matters. You do that which is in the interest of the Buddha Dharma. You abstain from doing the slightest thing that is not in the interest of the Buddha Dharma, but you have no attachment. Because when we get attached to doing things for people, that's still selfing. It's just selfing on another level. It's still selfing. And it's still an unclean offering. And it still doesn't benefit you. That might benefit the person that you do it for, and that's something for them, but it doesn't benefit you. But if you have no attachment, you abstain from doing such things, and leave it at that. That means whatever you do, you do. No. There's no bragging about it, not outwardly, also not inwardly. No thinking about it after it's done. It's just the moment arose, what could be done was done, and it's gone on. But when you're thinking about it, you're thinking about what you've done, you're thinking about your capacity, you think about, he said, all of that is polluted offering. You're calm and composed. As long as it accords with Buddha Dharma, you just do it. And as long as it accords with your capacity, And some people do what they really can't do. Really, there is some other needs that they need to take care of. But I'm not just talking about money. I'm talking about in time. I'm talking about in interest. I'm talking about, like in all forms of generosity, all forms of offering. When we talk about generosity, it's because of our minds. Our minds always only go to what? Money, right? But it could be the generosity of the grace in just overlooking a slight or tolerating a fault. That takes great generosity. It might take some clarity too, but it's the generosity to be able to give clarity. It's space, and so sometimes we have to say things that are uncomfortable for people to hear. Sometimes people just don't know. Sometimes they do know, and they need to be called on it. It's not easy to cut off attachment to self in the ultimate sense. You need powers to cut off attachment to self in the ultimate sense. You must sit down and thoroughly realize emptiness to cut off such attachment. Oh, isn't it wonderful to know that we don't have to be fooled? We don't have to fool ourselves. We can know. Worldly attachment to self has to do with conduct. For example, I said to Wawa, I say to Wawa, give up your house for the cause of Buddhism. It would be best if you can live in a tent tomorrow. We'll give you a tent. You can sleep on the balcony beside the house, but you're prohibited from entering the house. The house will be used to carry out Buddhist matters for the next 20 years. Is that all right with you? While listen carefully, this is crucial. At this time, you should immediately and without hesitation say, Buddha Master, I will immediately go do it. Now, I know what a request like that is, because I've had that kind of request. And I know my capacity because I was able to do it. But there was a time that I wasn't able to do it. I just didn't see it like that. As they say, when I would talk to my husband about things, he said, oh, I don't think it takes all that. So there came a time when I really had to choose what takes what. And for me, the freedom and the path of freedom for me was needing to be in either a solitary space or a like-minded space. Because what I thought it took, he didn't think it took all that. So I left him with what he thinks things take, and I stepped into what things take for me. Freedom for me. So we have a partial way of looking at things. It's very difficult for me to talk about matters in the Sangha because we have couples. And that can get really, really sticky. And when you have a small local Sangha, it can get really sticky because everybody thinks they know everybody else's business. You know, that's how little groups are. Or they're speculating on who I'm talking about, or what. It's like that. So you can't say as much as you want to say because people's minds go off into their own thoughts instead of sticking with this and seeing what is the instruction here for me, what is the direction, what is the way out or forward for me. It might not be a spouse. It might be our parents. It might be our children. Sister know what I mean. It might be our twin. So close, intertwined and connected. This, this twin thing has me so just like wonder, especially because Lucida's tried to explain it to me, because she has a twin, and I'm like, identical, there's another me outside of me right there. And when she's thinking, I'm thinking the thoughts that she's thinking, how will I know which are her thoughts and which are my thoughts? I mean, like, it's an enigma to me. It's just one of these mysteries of the universe. I can't even figure out what's actually my thought, without having a twin, a flesh and blood, another self. We have a hard time just working with one, much less two. So he tells him, suppose I say to you, give up your house and use the house for the Dharma. Would this be acceptable to you? And he said, oh, yes, Buddha Master, I will immediately go do it. So then the Buddha prods him further. He says, moreover, you should not have the slightest reservation of fear. That would show that you've already cut off worldly attachment to self. On the other hand, you might think, in the future, I want to fall in love and get married. I also want to do such and such. How, how can I do these things when other people see me living in a tent? If you think over what I told you to do before you go ahead and do it, then you have not yet cut off worldly attachment to self. If you think it over based on your own self-interest and then resolve to do it, you're still in the process of training yourself to cut off worldly attachment to self. Now, this sounds like okay, like he said, don't just follow blindly and do things because, your teacher said it or you read it in a holy book or, but when you put it into the cauldron of your experience and blah, 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 blah. So there is the caveat when you put it into the cauldron of your experience, not past experiences. It's stepping up in this moment, untying the knots and getting rid of the confusion of what is it that I should do right here, right now, regarding this matter? And he says that you have to go through an inquiry and an action in regards to that and get the outcome. And then you can judge this now by how that's working for you, which way that's going. Some things may be more difficult on the outside, but inside you're getting freer and freer. This like stress, we try to define stress, but I mean just the weight of the things that you have built, the things that you have created, the status that you have, the respect that people give you, all of those things are weights. All of it. And when you yourself start to feel the freedom as these strings are cut from you, then you know you start rising like a helium balloon. My son has a party store, and he has regular balloons, and he sells those for $1 or something like that, And then he has helium balloons. He sells those for $5 or something like that. I don't really know, but I know that they're expensive. But the thing about the helium balloons is that they have a different quality of air in them, and they have different properties. The balloons can rise and they last a long time and all of that. I guess maybe because it doesn't have, common carbon dioxide in it, because like when we blow up balloons and then they have machines that blow them up. I don't know what's in those machines, but the helium it does different things. Right? And so this is, you're training yourself to cut off worldly attachment if you think it over based upon self-interest. And sometimes we don't think we have self-interest, we just think we have common sense. We're trying to get super normal sense. You first got to have just some common sense. But when we take the common sense as the highest sense, it is for samsara. And if that's enough for you, go with that. You'll have plenty of time in this life and future lives to work through it. But if you already know from your past experiences and what you are experiencing now that you're ready to switch from just the ordinary air balloons to a helium balloon, it's going to take something a little bit different. And actually, it's going to cost a little bit more too. It's going to cost you something. But to have the invitation for it can be titillating. I mean, we all admire holy beings. What we have to do to become one now, that's a different story. That's like having such great admiration for a martyr, but I don't want to be one. But a martyr never thinks about having admiration for martyrs, but not wanting to be one, because they don't think themselves as martyrs. They're just doing what they do out of their own understanding, out of their own capacity, out of their own vow, you see. So actually, sacrifice is that's an outer word when we observe what others do that we would find hard to do. We call that sacrifice. But from the inside, one who sacrifices, only thinking, what else could I do? There would be no other escape for me. I have to do this. And it's not, so sacrifice becomes a joyous thing, and then later it just becomes a non-thing. There's no thought, I am sacrificing. So the I is being rubbed out, and the cares of the world begin to grow strangely dim. When before all we lived for was that, for whatever it gave us, things, control over people, and esteem in the eyes of people. All of these kinds of trinkets that become gaudy and flashy as one continues to grow. Why? Simply because as you grow, you're dropping off partiality. And so suddenly, those things begin to tarnish. And we see that that's not the real. That's not enough. Doesn't bring that kind of lasting satisfaction. It brings some satisfaction, but it's sort of an oppressive kind of satisfaction. The Buddhas and Bodhisattvas will truly like you after you cut off worldly attachment to self. And if you don't cut it off, you'll not end the cycle of birth and death. There'll always be becoming something. There will always be the birth of something, becoming, constant beginnings and endings of things. And that's what brings so much of the dissatisfaction, the stress, the sense of unworthiness, the downer from the elation that one got when they were honored, or when they were proud, or when they were counting up what they have compared to what somebody else has. All those things, the happiness with that just doesn't last. So we look for something else to give us that high again. And even while we're on the ascent with that high, we know its quality, its taste. We've already had it before. It's not a new thing. It's the same old. And then we get embarked on the spiritual path, and we try to bring those things, our approved weapons, into this walk. Those worldly things, we try to bring them here because we're skilled at this. And we can come into environments and they're so pitiful and they're so bereft of any true Dharma that they just pretend that doesn't exist. They just lower the standard. They lower the bar of the Dharma. We treat you like children. Let's play games. They lower the bar instead of leaving the bar where it is and say, let's exercise. Chin up now. Let's chin up. Strengthen those muscles and keep the excellence. Otherwise, there'll be nothing at the end of this journey but another birth and death. he says, okay, talking to this guy, what if I told you that suddenly that you must immediately resign from your high level position and immediately start doing such and such Buddha masters, takeovers? Can you do that? Oh no, I mean, like I'm on a golf tournament. You know, I can't do that um, because golf is really more important. And I'm not saying don't golf. Don't misunderstand me. And I ain't talking about Joe because he's off at a golf tournament. You know, I'm just saying, you can make it anything you want. So, hey, Joe. So, so you know that immediately our minds go in places like that. You see what I'm saying? Before we can even take something and use it and apply it to ourselves, we're already like passing that on somebody else. Oh, I know. That's how our mind goes. You see. And that's one reason why we don't like what we call correction, you know, because um, we think that we're so attached to our image of ourselves, how people hold us, and the face I want you to see. That's what I'm always telling on myself so that you can see how simple this could be. You know, like you miss the mark and you see it, how wonderful that is. How wonderful that is. That's a taste of freedom right there. Now, it ain't me, that's them darn calacers, you know? Oh, but now that you brought it to my attention, I'll pay more attention to that. I mean, it can be little things. And I tell you these things, just like I'm always talking about growing up in the ghetto and baby's kids, you know, and you take them out and take them uptown and they acting like right where they came from. So I tell you these things, you know, because this is home. So that you know how to act when you get out in public around other people. And when you see kids acting out, it ain't their fault. Like, don't have any home training. Like being in that grocery store line and the checkout, and the stores can put all the candy right at the checkout. You know, they have a candy section in the store, but they have a second one at the checkout. So that all the mamas come to the store and have to bring their children with them, and then they get there right there, and there's the kids looking at all the candy. Mommy, I want this, and mommy, I want that, and mommy, I want. And she's like, got a grocery cart full of food, and she's like, you can't have that. Yeah, and falling out and kicking the. I'm like, I sure would like to take your child home. And all it takes is one day, because not their fault. And so when we water down the Dharma because we want to make sure we get those donations, when we water down the Dharma because we don't want to hurt somebody's feelings, when we water down the Dharma, it is not an act of compassion. To water it down is to think it's personal, because it's not personal, you see. It's not personal. So we don't have to take it personally. We just see it as a generic instruction to see, like, here's a shoe, try it on. That's all. And if if the shoe fits, oh, then I just I see. Then maybe I already knew the shoe fit, but now I tried the shoe on in front of you, and now you know the shoe fits me too. But maybe we knew all along, just you didn't know we knew. So it doesn't matter what it seems like from the outside. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is how one cultivates oneself and how one has the corresponding growth and development from being able to align oneself truly with the Dharma. And if the Dharma can find you, then you know you're not lost. That's the good thing. Might hurt your feelings for a second, or as long as you allow it to. But one knows that they're not lost if they can find themselves in the Dharma. So what if I told you to resign from your position of manager and start doing such and such Buddhist matters? Like I talked to somebody about something and they followed that for about a month. And then that just slid right into the background. I'm sure they remember what the promise was, what could be there in the future for them. But what it takes for that prophecy to become real is for them to really enter into it, the qualifications of it. And at the time, maybe they were really working at that, but now they know, that's what's in the future for me. Like how's it going to come into the future though, except that you bring it into the future by your own behavior, by your thoughts, your action, and your speech. And then it's, oh, that was a false prophet. No, you didn't keep going on that road. You vectored and you went over there. And now you want something for nothing. So it's like this, this is really practical. It's not pie in the sky. It's right here where we live, Dharma. So the Dharma doesn't stay the same. I think one of us, we were talking about the song that we wrote, the Dharma stays the same, and Buddha Master nodded, And I mean, like we were so proud of that song. And it is a good song. It's a good song for babies, like a lullaby, you know. But now that I'm in a different place, like, maybe my messaging could be a little bit different. Because I was saying the Dharma hasn't lost its power. You're just not operating in it. And I was saying, so therefore the Dharma doesn't change. It's just you change or you move away or whatever. And that was the point I was trying to make at that time. But now I see something different because everybody thinks the Dharma is the Dharma out there. It's like they would call it in Christianity the logos, the eternal word forever settled. But when it becomes alive in you, it's called the Rhema, the living word. So some Christians know the logos or know of the logos, and some have become it, and that's the Rhema, the living truth. And so these are where the road starts to get a little bit steep. We have to have those shoes to have like cleats in them that can grip the ground as we start our trajectory. It's like wanting to go up to the top of the mountain, but you want it to be this kind of a trajectory, and then boom, I'm up there. So it's when one knows that they're doing the right thing at the right time for the right reason, for the right people, that there is, they don't think about the consequences or what it costs to them. It's like seeing a precious field and give everything to buy it. He says, so when you can do that, not thinking about the consequences, that shows that you've cut off worldly attachment to self. So I might be 90% in one area, 10% in another, 50-50 in another, and that one's not even on the radar yet. I mean, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Just knowing, because that will govern what you do going forward. Because even celestial beings will test you to see if you have cut off worldly attachment to self. It says, such a being may defecate and tell you quickly, go and eat my feces. My feces is quite fragrant. Hurry up and eat it. Now that can be sort of like, you know how sometimes you get an instruction and you feel that you got to do it, and like you so happy you got chosen, selected for the role or for the position, and so like yeah, they chose me, and then when you step out and start doing it, like it gets really hard. You're like wait a minute, I thought like that the joy of the path would be commensurate with the honor, of the role of what you've been given to do. Like that seems like high, and that's right there, So I would think that actually carrying it out is high too, but no, it's rough. As Party people would say, it's rough dealing with knuckleheads. That's what I would always say. He's saying in the group, but mostly he was talking about me. He just didn't dare say it when it was just me and him. So he like just saying in a group and just sort of like gentle rain, let it say, maybe she'll get it.
No, it was us.
Yeah.
It's us
Ooh, hey. Yeah, but I would know because the comment would come out in Dharma after, we've had some conversation about something where we disagreed, and then I'd hear it, I'd hear it, I'd hear, and so that's what it means. That means like it's saying that there is something in the carrying out of it that's going to challenge you where you have spots. Yeah. And he says, if you're hesitant, he will not teach you the Dharma of celestial beings. Now, this is a Dharma of celestial beings. States that we enter into, both human and non-human. If it was only about human and worldly, it would be no need to have this Dharma. We're already living human, and we already have worldly wisdom. Now, it can be used to make this worldly life better for you, but it is not ultimately for worldly life. All those that exclude these other mind states, you have to know that you don't have the whole story. And one reason is because there'll be more people, it's broader at the base. The more refined the path gets, the less people you have willing or wanting to walk it. Yeah. Now, it is now, where's the clock? It is now 1:07. That's an hour and 7 minutes. And I haven't even finished the first paragraph. It's going to take a while to get through this discourse, but it's not a matter of getting through it. It's a matter of hearing the Dharma. That's the lowest level, the language prajna, hearing the language prajna. And then it takes contemplative illumination. So that when we're sitting in our meditation at home or whatever, we're just not sitting like a piece of stone, just going into a nothingness in our minds for the 15 minutes or 30 minutes or 45 minutes or an hour of nothingness that we want to do. That makes us not have so much stress about the things that we are attached to. That's not it. That's not the real practice. That's not the overcoming practice of disciples of the Buddha. Because if you do not cultivate these good habits, you will not be able to pass the tests when they come in your life. If you constantly analyze Buddha Dharma matters according to your worldly mentality, you will not be able to cut off worldly attachment to self. If you're not able to cut off worldly attachment to self, it'll be out of the question for you to cut off attachment to self in the ultimate sense. But I mean, you just go into a dead kind of emptiness, a nihilistic kind of emptiness, where whatever time you set, choose, or fall into. And then when you come back, you're right back. So he says, I'd like to give you an example involving myself. I like to use myself because I feel that I have cultivated myself very well. I feel that many patriarchs were not as good as I am, so I use myself as an example. I'm telling you this very sincerely. The Master Museum has been built. It stands to reason that it is a place of great honor. If we had a room inside the museum to live in, we could receive people and do many things. We could make friendly contacts with people throughout the whole society. However, I don't want to do that. Although I feel that museum is a very good place, it is sometimes managed. It is something that is managed by worldly minded people. People who cultivate themselves and learn Buddhism should not be attached to such things. Why be attached to that museum? It would be easy to degenerate with such attachment. Wawa and the others wanted to go there to mount those paintings of mine. I did not want to go. Everybody knows that the master, famous artist, and et cetera, et cetera. I wanted to go 2 days ago, but since then I have not wanted to go. I will let them mount the paintings and hang them on the museum. They will surely do a poor job, which will harm my reputation. However, I don't care even about that. I tell you clearly, I could not care less because I am a practitioner. I am one who cultivates himself. I'm not interested in worldly matters. Now, it's not so much about his story. He's just giving you an example of how you should think so that you can find your story about things. I was talking with a master the other day, and she said, "What are you doing about your legacy? And what are you going to set up?" I said, "Well, I started thinking about that a year ago." I said, "But as I'm taking what I'm learning from Buddha Master about the Dharma, I suddenly realized I have no legacy. There's a self that has a legacy, you know." So I'm no longer thinking about how I want things set up, how I want it to operate when I'm gone, what I want to. I said, I'm not thinking about that. I said, now the legacy I want to leave is the freedom for the people coming after me to do what is in their heart, their mind, their capacity, and as they understand and know the Dharma to do. That's what I want to. I said, because I didn't want to say it. I had to be very careful because this person's been very helpful to me. But when I don't do things exactly the way she wants, I don't see it exactly the way she sees it, there's some condemnation there. Like I'm not doing what she thinks I should do or what she wants. But she's her with her propensities, personality, and so forth, and I'm me. We are not twins. We are not joined at the hip, you see. And I know what that feels like to try to make me somebody else. Every, every soul has its own journey. And we have a short time to walk it out, and then that's over. And so, I'm looking at how my mind has changed. It's not just the last year, because this has been working towards this for 5 years, to give up the 90-bedroom hardwood instead of doing anything I could by hook or crook to keep it, and have to get into back, and with COVID over, have to get back into the business of holding retreats and having, teachers come in who I don't even think are teaching good Dharma, but they have followers who only want Pablum Dharma to come and give Dharma just so I can keep the place and it can look like something. I could care less. Now, I just got an email. Did I read it? I'm not going to read the email, but did I read it to you? Or I just tell you about it the other day? And you, okay, but basically the email is from the person who now owns Hardwood, bought Hardwood, and she's in the development phase of, the pre-development phase of putting together her plans for what she's going to do and get new zoning and new life. So it's a long-term process, for her to do all that. And she's going to have condos there, and she's going to have the inn. The mother house will become a bed and breakfast and a social something or other. And she said, and we want to give you back the Dharma Hall. You can just have that. Now, I'm not saying that we will, but I'm just saying at one time I was doing all I could do, spending all I had just on how to have this, how to sustain it, how to keep it, until that became not as important to me. I didn't want to spend my life energy on that. This Dharma became more important, this transformative Dharma that I could actually think that one could, in this very life, attain, became worth everything to me. Out of 101 Dharma teachers, I think 80 walked away, saying this Dharma right here, this is too tough. Or I don't know what it is, or I don't want to even investigate what it is. Or if you start saying now you know nothing, what does that make us? Less than nothing, because we're your students. And so conceit and pride kept from going further. That's what it costs. It costs something. It costs something. And it's not a prideful thing. So when somebody comes and says, well, what you know, I know, what I know, if you haven't gone through the things that I've gone through to be able to have these eyes and see, no, you don't. But it's not a pride thing. It's a knowing thing. It's just a knowing thing. Because I know how I had to slice and dice Pannavati to be able to see some things. And now I've sliced and diced enough to know that my vision, I can't see any further than a half a block. And there's the whole world to see and know. So I've put myself in the right category. And that's where my confidence is. It's not in what I know, it's in the company that I keep. That's what I'm telling you. If you have ears to hear. The Buddha Master gave this. He gave this. There were beginners there. There were midland level. There were senior practitioners. There were Dharma kings. There were Rinpoche's great venerable ones. And the whole scope, But each take it on whatever level they can take it. But even when I can't take something right now. Even when that medicine is too bitter for me, or even when like it just doesn't even make sense. You know, if all there was what makes sense to me, and I know me, then we'd be in sad shape. There'd be no hope for anybody. And so I can hold what I can't take right now. And it doesn't make me feel bad. It makes me feel like there is somewhere to go. There is more to know. There is a greater ground. I can move up a little higher, and then I can peruse and see the whole forest. Right now, I can't see the forest for the trees, but there is this estate that even I can ascend to. And it gives me courage and confidence instead of putting me down or pissing me off. Uh, all of you sitting here, I'm just going to go to the bottom and then I'm going to, I do have my eye on the clock. And I want to tell you, I didn't even get to the part that I hoped that we would hear today. However, although I feel the museum is a good place for the worldly people, something managed by worldly people, people who cultivate themselves and learn Buddhism should not be attached to such things. Why be attached to that museum? It would be easy to degenerate, sorry, it would be easy to degenerate with self-attachment. So that's the danger of self-attachment. It causes us to degenerate. So we can be going good and we're growing and we're learning, and then we start thinking about ourselves and what something costs us. Then we start pulling back and we degenerate. But we think we're right at the place we were when we had that great insight or when we had that great faith. But now the trials and the tests have come and they've kind of dampened the mood of it, because you can't like eat just one meal and say, Eureka, I have all the food I need. You have to keep eating, you have to keep nourishing yourself. And so Wawa and the others wanted to go there to mount the paintings, and they'll do a poor job, and it'll harm my reputation. However, I don't care about that. I tell you clearly, I could not care less. I'm a practitioner, one who cultivates himself. I'm not interested in worldly matters. You should cultivate the habit of cutting off worldly attachment to self. All of you sitting here are much wealthier than I was in the past. When I came to Bhagwan Temple, my monthly salary was only 64 yuan. During that period of time, I had no money other than money for my living expenses. My shoes were so worn out, they had holes all over. It is not that I couldn't afford new ones. I tell you clearly that I could afford new ones. But at the time, my paintings were selling for 100 yuan per painting. However, after those paintings were sold, I did not go to the temple to collect the money. I refused to go and collect the money in order to cut off my worldly attachment to self and not give rise to greedy thoughts. The rule during that period of time was that we would receive 70% of the proceeds from the sales of the paintings, and the temple would get 30%. You could keep the 70 for yourself, but I never did this. I never collected proceeds. You can go to the temple and inquire about this. So when you give to the Dharma here, we don't take any money. None of us. We give ours to supplement yours so that there's a place for you to come. That's what we do. That's what we do. And so it is good. It is good to give, but don't misunderstand and get the idea that you're giving to us because you're not. He says, all of this is written about in my biography. It's factual. And if it contained false information, they would know. Now, of course, Buddha Master had a vow, it's not, and that vow was never to accept offerings. You know, I said, Buddha Master, I want your vow. He said, you don't have the virtuous karma to not accept offerings at this time. So keep working though and you'll get it. So I'm working. Do you think I'm relying on others to take care of my Dharma work? No, maybe giving an opportunity for others to participate in this for their merit, but I'm not relying on that. I know what I can rely on and what I cannot rely upon. So sometimes I have to go without. Sometimes I have to charge it, like charging 10 airline tickets, 6 airline tickets for us to go and preach the Dharma to people. Going places I don't even always want to go. Like I'm going to a festival, but I have no interest in being at this festival, you know, and around what the festival's engaged in, you know. And I told him, I said, can I just put this right here? You might have to turn it down because it's okay. And I told them, the organizers and the university, I don't have, you know, I don't think I can add anything to your festival and what people are coming there for and all of that. He said, no, precisely you do. That's why we want you to come, because there's some people who are coming to this festival searching for things. You know, so it's not going to be a majority of the people searching for what you offer, but there will be people coming for that. And we need to have, they're going there to find it, to try to find it. Yeah, but what they're looking for, they're not going to find at our festival. We already know that. But that's why we want you to be there. You know. And so in a situation like that, you know, I mean, like how could I refuse? It wasn't like they didn't get me. They didn't understand what I do. They absolutely do. And they say, I remember an evangelist came to town when I was a Christian. I'm not going to get through this paragraph. Came to town and as she was finishing up her evangelism and she was very, very famous. You know, she lost her fame because she stayed for us, you know, and just became a local town preacher. But she was high out there on the fancy smashy circuit, right? And where they would do the $1,000 a plate offerings. They would have the lines too. I've gone through my training. Like if you want a really good blessing, you get in the $1,000 line. Mediocre one in the $500 line. You know, the general pass the bucket was like you might get some blessings, but the ones who in the $1,000 line, they got blessings. You know, so I'd already gone through all of that. But anyway, she was there, and her teaching touched me in very real ways in my life. It wasn't just a general gospel, you know, but ways that I could look at my life, understand myself, make life better, do better in my relationships with people and my view of life, you know. And so there were a number of us. There were like around 30 of us who had gone out. We went every day, you know, because this great big cathedral had invited her. You know, we could never invite her to our little storefront place, you know, but we went there and no, we didn't have a storefront place at that time. Most of us were part of that cathedral or had been, but left because there was so much corruption. And we were like lost, didn't know what to do, where to go, stuff like that. And at the end of that crusade is what they would call them in those days, you know, we asked her if she would stay and start a church. And so she went in to pray about it and said, the Lord spoke to her and said, will you stay for 100 people? She said, yeah. He said, how about 50 people? She said, yes. He said, how about 10 people? She said, yes. He said, how about one? Will you stay for one? And she said she had to think about that one. I mean, their shoes cost $1,000 a pair. She had to think about that one. And then finally she said, yes, I'll stay for even one. And that's what she did. And she gave up that $50,000, $100,000 a night gig she had for just a handful of people. And she guided us until she left this world. You know. So this is what things cost. Except for, you know, it's priceless to us. And we respect it. And so I'll have to pick up next time because this is a good place to start because the next thing will go on much longer. But don't remember this. Remember this story, sister. Do I have this one recorded? I don't think so. In the
Yeah,
it is.
one of our.
It is. It's already recorded. Okay, so you can listen to it if you want. It's called The First Thing in Cultivation is to Cut Off Worldly Attachment to Self. And it's a great invitation. And I just so appreciate all of the effort that you all spend working on yourself. And I want to let you know what's in store if you don't get off the path. You know? And when you fall, just get back on the path. And I thank you for your effort and your own personal cultivation on behalf of living beings. If somebody will close us out today.
May the benefit of our practice be felt in all directions. May we approach each person, situation, ourselves with the mind of the Buddha and the great question, how can the Buddha Dharma guide me in thought, speech, and action so that I and may all beings may reach their highest aspiration and attainment? And in this process, do not squander this moment and do not squander your life.
Can we close out with Cut My Strings?
Cut my strings. action